Hi, I'm Tanya, and today we're going to start with some seated flexion and extension of the spine. So come to a crisscross seated position, lengthen the spine tall, let the shoulders drop, and we're going to bring the arms out, backs of the palms face each other as we tip the pelvis back, round the spine, and then open through the chest, extend. Exhale and inhale. And exhale. Be sure to keep the shoulders down as you open. And exhale. Keep your movement slow but flowing. Exhale. Inhale. Shoulders stay down. Exhale. And inhale. We're getting pelvic movement. So we're going into a posterior tilt, into an anterior tilt. We're also getting flexion and extension of the spine, as well as getting movement in the shoulders, the chest, and the back. Getting our breathing going. Okay, now you're going to interlace your fingers. We're going to inhale as you come in, then we're going to turn the palms away. Exhale, round the spine. Inhale, bring it up. Exhale, bring the backs of the hands to the forehead. Inhale up. Exhale, round the back. And inhale up. And again, exhale away. Fingertips to the forehead, open the chest, press back up, exhale away. We're bringing in more arm movement now. Up, opening up, pressing back up, triceps, exhale away, and up, and exhale. Inhale, exhale, and exhale, and inhale. Nice, good. Okay, so from here, let's open out a little bit. We're going to get some movement now in the hip joint from the thigh bones. So you want to have your legs far enough apart that when you roll in, you have room for your toes. Keep the spine lifted up tall. You're going to rock the pelvis forward slightly so that you're not collapsed in your back and your shoulders, but that you have a nice tall spine with your pelvis lifted up, sitting upright. And we're going to roll in and roll out. And you want to make sure that the movement comes from up here in the thigh bones. In and out. Just rolling back and forth, keeping our spine lifted, our chest open. We're going to do about 10 more of these. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 2 more. 9 and 10. Now you're going to come into what we call a Z-sit. So you're going to cross, and again, I'll mirror you. So bring your left leg across the front. You want to try to have your knee in line with your hip, and then your shin straight across with your other leg coming up to meet it. Now, if you're tight in the hips and this is uncomfortable for you, you can prop yourself up on a small block if you have a yoga block, or if you want to be seated in a chair doing that, you could just have the chair here behind you. This leg could still be back behind with this leg crossed in front. Or if you have a small blanket or a pillow, whatever will just lift your hips up as high as you need to be comfortable during this. Okay. All right, so we're in our Z-sit. In this position, you want to try to press your right sits bones down when we're facing forward. And then the movement is going to be that the hip is going to roll as we stretch forward. And then that hip is going to sit back down as we open the arm out this way, so that we are getting this movement of the pelvis over the thigh bone, and we're getting that rotation through the back. So bring the arm out, roll, stretch forward, and reach it back. Your left arm should be slightly back and away from the body so that it's not forward, but it's slightly back behind you, so that when we open up, we're getting a stretch through here. And then rotate, drop that sit bone, roll the hip. So here we're getting all kinds of wonderful good things. We're getting a stretch from this back knee all the way through the quad, up the hip flexor, up the front of the body, out through the arm. Then we're getting rotation of the pelvis over the thigh bone. We're getting rotation of the pelvis and the low back. We're getting rotation of the rib cage. We are opening the chest and arm line, and we're also getting good shoulder rotation. So this is a great, pretty much whole body flow with just such a nice, simple exercise. Open and stretch. Let's do one last one. Open and stretch. Come back to center and we'll just switch sides. Again, when that knee is pointing forward, we're getting a real good stretch in the hip rotators that normally take the leg out, but now we're stretching them in the opposite direction. So that's another stretch that is good with this one. Your fingertips are going to point away from the body, back behind you. And here we go, stretching. Sit that sits bones down, open, roll the hip, come back, and sit the sit bones back down. Think of keeping the spine long and lifted so that you really work into the stretch nice and long, reaching forward and opening up. Keeping the movement flowing down. Let that hip roll and open. Let's go one more. And reach and open. Good. Okay, let's come back to a 4-point kneeling position now for some cat-cow. We had a lot of rotation, so now we want to bring the spine back to neutral. Just a few cat-cows. Curl it up and reach it out. And curl it up and lengthen out. Shoulders are right over the wrists. Your hips are directly over your knees. Keeping your shoulders pulled back away from the neck, both in the cat position and in the cow position. Now we're going to come up into a gate pose, meaning that we are going to have our mirroring you again. Your left foot is going to be in line with your right knee. You've got your standing leg right under your hip, and you're in a comfortable position here with where you have your foot positioned for our gate pose for our lunge. If it's too far out, you're going to feel too much stretch up high in the groin, but if it's too close, you're not going to be able to get much stretch in the inner thigh. So usually placing your ankle under your knee is a good place to start with that. So let's just start with some nice easy stretches, nice and slow into it. I like to kind of place my hand inside my knee so that my knee doesn't fall in. I want to really open up my hips, increase that stretch of the inner thigh. And now I'm going to add my right arm. We're going to add a rotation and open out. And rotate and open out. And reach. Again, keep the spine tall. Don't collapse. In it, nice and open and lengthened. Shoulders down, just letting that right arm swing. Now, I'm going to take my range of motion a little bit smaller, so I'm not going to go to my end range of my stretch. I'm going to go a little bit smaller because I'm going to have a little bounce in it now. So let's just start with just the bounce before we add the arm to it. Just a little bounce. Catch yourself before you're fully at the end of your range of motion, and let it bounce you back. And bounce back. Good. Now we're going to add the arm. Swing. swing, swing. One more like this, and then we're going to add a back stretch. Swing. And now we're going to sit back on the back side, stretch over, swing, bounce, and stretch. Swing, bounce, and stretch. Two more. Swing, bounce, stretch back. Last one. Swing and stretch. Nice. Okay, let's go to the other side. I'm going to set myself up so that my left foot is directly back behind my left knee, and then my right heel is in line with my standing leg. I'm going to put my right hand to the inside of my right knee and stretch and back. Just getting the inner thigh and the hip ready for our movement. Taking it nice and slow, just getting a stretch. Now let's add a little arm swing with a little rotation. And open. And open. Okay, now I'm going to take my movement a little bit smaller, and we're going to do our bounce and back. Bounce and back. So we bounce and we recoil back into it. Bounce and recoil back. Let's add the arm. Bounce and swing. And bounce and swing. Okay, and now we're going to add the stretch on the back side. And stretch. Nice. Feels so good. And over. Let's do two more. Good. And over. Nice. Okay, so now let's come into some rotation of the spine. I'm going to have you lie down on your left side. Again, I'm going to be mirroring you. Your bottom hand, your left hand is going to rest on your knees, and your spine is long and straight. So I don't curl to reach my knees. I pull my knees up to reach my arm. Then I'm going to take my right arm up by my ear as I spiral open and rest my head on the back of my head, looking up to the ceiling. And I've got my chest as open towards the ceiling as I can, letting my arm hang open to the side. And I'm keeping my right hand on my knees so that I can feel, are my knees still lined up? Or when I rolled open, did my hips shift back and my knees shifted back? So I want to keep my hips stacked, my knees stacked. So my hand on top of my knees helps me keep that. And then I'm rotating open, my chest open to the ceiling as much as possible. Maybe your arm is touching the floor, maybe your fingertips are, or maybe not. I want you to always take care of yourself in any of the stretches that we do, and if anything is uncomfortable, take it into a smaller range of motion if you need to, or if you need a prop, such as if you would like to have a yoga block or a pillow under your right hand if it's not quite reaching the floor. And you just want to feel like you are releasing and relaxing into the stretch, never forcing anything. This is a wonderful stretch for the arm, the shoulder, the chest, for the diaphragm, for the spine, for all of the muscles that run up the spine. We get a stretch down across the hip. And we just want to release and relax our breathing into it. Okay, now we're going to close up. So we're going to bring that right arm and shoulder back over to where we've taken all of the rotation out. And then we're going to roll to the other side. I'm going to have to move my microphone pack over. I'm going to roll to the other side here, resting your right hand on your knees. And you're going to bring your arm up by the ear and then rotate open. Again, maybe your fingertips are resting on the floor, maybe they're not. When I first started doing this stretch, I was so tight in this direction that I couldn't even rest my head on the floor. So I had to have a pillow under my head, and my arm was way up here. But slowly over time, as you continue to do the stretches and the body starts to release where it has adhesions and bound tissue, can start to open up again. I'm using my right hand on top of my knees to give me a little bit of traction so that I feel like I'm kind of pulling my knees down and away from my hips, just gently. There's not much force with it. Just relaxed breathing. Everybody's going to feel the stretch in a different place, depending on where you're tight. Some people may feel it more across the chest and the shoulders. Some may feel it more in the low back. And now let's bring that back over. Again, taking all of your rotation out, stacking the shoulders, stacking the hips, and then come back to your back. Arms down by your side, and then slowly lengthen out your left leg and pull your right knee into your chest. And then switching sides. Lengthen out your other leg. Pull your knee into your chest. And then from here, we're going to go into pelvic tilts. So you're going to bend your knees. Your feet are about 6 inches apart. And I want you to imagine that you have a small bowl of water sitting on your abdomen right between your belly button and your pubic bone. And what we're going to do is we're going to just tip that back as if to spill that water back onto our abdomen and then come back to neutral. So what we're doing is we're tipping the pelvis back, pressing our low back into the floor or mat, and coming back to a neutral position. And tipping back, and neutral. And 4, and neutral. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now you're going to let, if I'm still mirroring you, no, I don't think I am because I think, so I'm going to drop my right thigh down to the floor. My left knee is still pointed up to the ceiling, but I'm going to let my left hip roll off of the floor a little bit. So now my pelvis is on a diagonal. And we're going to continue to do 10 more pelvic tilts this way. Tilt and down. Feel like you're tucking and then releasing back to neutral. So what's happening here is we're getting a stretch in a couple of different muscles that run across the pelvis. On the side where our leg is down, we're getting a stretch in the pectineus muscle, which runs from the pubic bone over to high up on the thigh bone. Stretches kind of across in a little bit of a horizontal. And then on the other leg, we're getting a stretch in the psoas, which is one of our main hip flexors. And it connects from the inside of the top of the thigh, runs across the pelvis, and then attaches in the front-facing part of our spine, in our low back. One last one. Bring that back to center and let your legs drop the opposite direction. So now my right hip is rolling off the floor. I'm pointing my right knee back up towards the ceiling and tuck and release. Tilting my pelvis in what we call a posterior tilt, meaning the top of my pelvis is tipping back. And 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 more, 9, and 10. And now we want to come back to our neutral position with our spine elongated on the floor. Both sides of our hips feel like they're even on the floor. My feet are about 6 inches apart. And let's just do about 5 more here in center just to bring us back to that centered neutral position. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then just rest here in a neutral position. There should be a small arch in your low back, not forced, but just a little bit of air space there underneath the low back. And then you may roll yourself back up to a seated position. And thank you for joining us again today.